Welcome. We're so glad you're here today. My name is Brooke Doyle. I'm the project coordinator for Supercharged Storytimes.
Ooh, wow. And I'm Kathleen Gesinger. I'm the Learning Community Manager with WebJunction, which is part of the OCLC Research Division. And thank you for being here. We're really excited to have you here. So we wanted to start off with a recent OCLC Next blog post. And to an outsider, a library story time can seem deceptively simple. Grab a favorite book and ham it up. Use a puppet, silly voices, and everyone will have fun. Story times are entertaining, as you know, but libraries are in a unique position to connect with families and their children from birth. And skillful, thoughtful storytime practitioners are key to the role that libraries can play as anchor institutions within a broader community learning infrastructure. This was a quotation by Serge Goding, who is our early literacy consultant and extraordinaire and longtime librarian. I'm really pleased that she's here today. She really inspired us in our work and really helped us get to a polished final product. And it is in kind of this context of thinking about how we can provide library staff and library practitioners, storytime practitioners, an opportunity to really build skills, hone skills that you already have built, and really find a community of other folks who are doing similar work. So other storytime practitioners. And really also reminding all of our learners that the work that you do is really important. The work that you do impacts children, it impacts families, and it impacts communities. So just as libraries are really in a unique position to connect families and libraries, or families and children, WebJunction is in a really unique position to provide this type of learning network and to really create a place that people can come to and really begin their learning journey or just continue it. We know that library staff and storytime practitioners are lifelong learners, and they're helping build the earliest lifelong learners as young babies. Through financial support of OCLC and the Institute of Museum and Library Services, we have been able to put together a real amazing collection of training, stories, worksheets, materials that can really help to make new connections in your work, make new connections in your community. We, through this project, we have actually heard from a lot of people who have gone through this training, and we're going to talk about that training, but we just wanted to kind of kick off with what we're hearing already because it's just so moving to us. A big piece of Supercharged Storytimes is an intentionality. So really being intentional in the practices that you bring to your story time. It could be those small pieces of early literacy nuggets that can really encourage and inspire children and parents as well. And we're hearing that it's making a difference. So the more intentional I become with incorporating early literacy tips, the more parents want to talk to me afterward. And that's something that we're hearing from a lot of folks, that sometimes they don't have a connection with parents. And this is allowing folks to build that confidence to talk to parents and to babies and to help them really model what are great practices so that they can take those practices home. We have a lot of tools within this training. It's just an amazing array of material that has been developed. And one of the things that we're hearing is that the toolkits themselves, all the different pieces, are really help to just provide nuggets for you to use. We're hearing that I really like that Supercharged Storytimes encourages a couple of early literacy concepts. This is small pieces that can make a big difference, and also that you don't have to feel overwhelmed that you have to do this entire, collection of things during your story time. But really, it's one piece, thinking about one step, and we'll talk about what those look like. Additionally, a big component of Supercharged Storytimes is really thinking about how to build in the always important equity lens of your work. So thinking about who is in your community, who is in your library, and who is not. Who is not coming to your library? Who are the children that are not making it to your story times? And really beginning to have that conversation, to talk about that, to ask those questions. Who are we not serving? And so we had some great quotations that have come in from our participants. One is Ralph Smith. He has an amazing talk in our video in our session, or in the training rather. And someone shared that he really inspired me and also reminded me that this is a process of constant and active journey of connecting with community members, overcoming biases, building relationships, and removing barriers. And so, yes, Storytimes is about having fun. It's about encouraging children, but it's a lot more than that, as all of you know. Thank you for being here. So Supercharged Storytimes was really born out of the questions and inquiries from public librarians and library directors. And the project Views 2, which was a group of researchers from the University of Washington Information School here in Seattle, so it feels extra special. They sought to answer a question, and this question is listed here. How can we know whether the early literacy focus of our Storytimes makes a difference for children? And through their research, they were able to say and to understand that an intentional focus on early literacy content in public library Storytimes can increase the children's early literacy behaviors while at story time. So when I'm doing something intentionally and I'm talking about alphabetic knowledge, then they're seeing shapes. Shapes mean something. A triangle can translate to an A down the road. So what is early literacy? Well, I'm pretty sure the folks that are here know this definition, but it's always good to have a good definition. And I love this one because early literacy is what children know about reading and writing before they can actually read and write. And that's such a powerful thing to understand that early literacy is not about reading in a book. It's about knowing that this book is something that I hold. It might taste good as a baby. It's something that I know, I open it. I know which side to open it. I know that it has pages. All of these foundational pieces are a piece of early literacy. Of course, there's a lot more, and that's why we have this course. As many of you are likely familiar with Every Child Ready to Read through the PLA, it helped to illustrate these 5 key practices. So singing, reading, writing, talking, playing, as really foundational practices in Storytimes and in early literacy development. I'm a mother myself. I have 2 young kids, and knowing that singing to my baby is not just about connecting with them and a nurturing thing to do, but it's also helping them develop their early literacy skills. So knowing that singing to my baby is actually way important. Real quickly, these are some of the key early literacy components that we've included through this training. So including the 5 early literacy practices and really integrating it within these different components. So oral language, phonological awareness, print awareness, letter knowledge, vocabulary, and background knowledge. Helping Storytime practitioners help parents understand that phonological awareness is something that is helping hearing smaller sounds and words. So that when we sing to our babies, we're helping them hear the different sounds in the song. And in turn, that will help them understand the smaller sounds and words and help them when they start to read. So singing to my baby, I am helping him prepare to read. Personally, and in our profession, it just makes me so happy as a mother. So it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to bring to lots of people. So I'm excited to invite Brooke Doyle to come and talk about the 4 pillars of Supercharged Storytime.
Thank you. So now that we know that a storytime makes a difference in a child's early literacy development, what was so important in that Views 2 training that allowed those storytimes to be so effective? And we've isolated a Supercharged Storytime down to these 4 pillars: interactivity, intentionality, assessment, and community of practice. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about each one. Interactivity is, of course, engaging with the storytime content. We know that adults and children learn best when they're active. We also know that most storytime providers with some training will incorporate some form of interactivity in their storytime. It might be a call and response. It might be a repeated refrain throughout the story where you motion for the children to join in. At Supercharged Storytime, we try to find even more places to be really purposeful in incorporating that interactivity. We also know that a common complaint among storytime providers is that the adults in the room are sort of checked out. They're taking a break, they're on their phone, they're maybe not even sitting with their child, and we see that as a really missed opportunity. Certainly understandable, but a missed opportunity. So one of the things we do, one of the activities we suggest is to pause during your story time and take a moment to design an activity where the adult and the child do it together. And the adult and the child each have an important role that has to happen for the activity to work. And no one can get an adult to interact more than their own child. So when your child is saying, please do this with me, you're probably going to do it. Whereas the librarian, maybe not. So we think that that's just a really good example of helping to find those ways to incorporate interactivity in a really purposeful way. The second pillar is intentionality. And if you remember nothing about a supercharged story time, I hope you remember that it's intentional. So we want to be really mindful of all the pieces of a story time. So the planning, the delivery, and the reflection. And we have a lot of great tools to incorporate that. And the best one I want to talk about today is called the Early Literacy Planning Tool. And I have some copies here you can take at the end. It's a really great reference guide. So it's organized by each component that we talked about, and there's a goal at the top, and then it's divided by age. So birth to 18 months, 18 to 36, and 36 to 5 years old. And there's what developmentally appropriate behaviors you would be expecting to see from children, and then what the adults that interact with that child can do to develop those behaviors. And it's a great reference guide. We've had really super response to this. It's we usually start with having providers look at it and check off the things you already do. So it's a really validating exercise, like, wow, look how much I already do. And then, wow, there's a fair bit on here that I haven't been thinking about, and I'm going to be really thoughtful of how I can incorporate that. We've had really great feedback that it helps, and it really streamlines the planning process, that it helps you feel better about backing up what you're doing with evidence, that it even brings the joy back into story time. So you can think about, wow, I'm doing this, and I'm really making an impact. There's a lot I'm doing, and it's really validating and kind of boosts your confidence. Uh-oh. I really think that confidence piece is really important. It's empowering those storytime providers to feel like I am really making a difference. And what I'm doing isn't just entertaining. It is entertaining, but it's also really effective and impactful. I want to talk again about those parents and caregivers in the room. We have a great planning tool worksheet that goes with this. So this is sort of your reference guide, and then you have a worksheet for an individual story time. And you would think about, okay, what component do I want to work on? How am I going to do that? What stories am I going to use? And what am I going to do during the story to develop those skills? And then there's a place at the bottom for what parent tip am I going to deliver? So we know a lot of practitioners feel really uncomfortable about this. It doesn't feel natural to them. They feel a little preachy. They maybe don't have enough confidence. They don't feel like they can talk confidently about these tips. But the idea is to share in a really digestible, short way and a really accessible way what you're doing and why you're doing it. So this is why I'm singing that song. This is why I'm running my finger across the print. And really short, doesn't have to interrupt the flow of the story time. And it tells why you're doing it and that you can do it at home. So we know a story time is really relatively short, maybe 30 minutes. Maybe you have your regulars, but you probably have people who drop in and then you don't see them for a month or maybe ever. So you have an opportunity to really connect with them and say, hey, this is something that I'm doing that's important. Here's why, and you can do it too. And so we've had some great feedback. I will say this is one of the most active areas of our online discussion boards. People are really saying, I'm not comfortable with this, but I'm going to do it because I know it's important. And we have a lot of really accessible resources to make it feel like you can do this, it's important, and you can do it, and here's how. We have a lot of video clips. We have a lot of different styles of delivering a tip, and a lot of practitioners are really sharing great ideas. They're also saying, making themselves really vulnerable. I don't feel comfortable with this, but I'm going to try it. And then they come back and say, I did it. It was a little clunky, but I did it, and I connected with a parent, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to continue on this journey. So I want to share a little quotation from someone. This was a practitioner who said, I included a parent caregiver tip about providing opportunities for writing with 2- and 3-year-olds. So she was focusing on print awareness. And you know, a 2- and 3-year-old is not going to be writing their name. They're going to be grabbing that crayon and scribbling. But that is important, and parents need to know that's important. And why is it important? How are those fine motor skills developing, and what shapes are they figuring out for later on? So she said her tip was this: making marks and scribbles helps to develop fine motor skills and eye-hand coordination. Writing scribbles will lead to writing shapes, which will then lead to writing letters. She said it went well. I felt more comfortable discussing the tip because I had taken the time to think through how to say it with the early literacy planning tool. So getting that confidence and really figuring out what words you're going to say and then just going for it. So some really great feedback on that, an important piece to remember to incorporate. Assessment is the third pillar of Supercharged Storytimes. I've talked a lot about how you would be observing your children's behavior and figuring out if you've pitched your story time at the right level. Maybe you underestimated where the kids were, and so you look at that planning tool and you adjust your instructions accordingly. There's self-reflection is incorporated in the whole process of planning, delivery, and assessment, reflection. We also have some more formal tools, such as Project Outcome. You're probably familiar with this. It's a set of free evaluation tools from PLA. They're very easy to use. It's a really low barrier way to start assessment if this is not something you're used to. And we walk you through how to set up an account, get your template, print out your surveys. It's very easy to use. And then you would hand these out at the end of a story time, certainly not every story time, but occasionally, to get some data from your patrons. How are they experiencing story time? What are they getting out of it? What do they want to see more of? What do they want is maybe not working for them? And you hand them out at the end of the story time, you collect them up, and you get a data point. And then that leads to, wow, the puppets are really making a difference. Parents want puppets, I'm going to do more puppets. And that's something to take to your director or your stakeholders and say, hey, story times are great. We have a lot of interest in baby story time. Let's see if we can get another one. So it's just a really accessible way to start some assessment if this is new for you. And the fourth pillar is a community of practice. So this is finding peers and colleagues on your storytime journey. I will say that the course is not designed to be blasted out in 3 days. It is really designed to be done over time, so in digestible chunks. So spend some time with the learning materials online, the videos, the readings. Go and practice in your storytime. So practice those skills we've talked about, and then reflect and come back. And that means going onto those online forums. And we have 1,600 people enrolled in the course. So there are some active discussions. Great. People are being really forthright, and they're asking for help, giving help, coming back and reflecting on the experience and sharing that. So we really have baked in the community of practice into the course. But we also talk about how your storytime journey continues beyond the course. So where are you going to find those peers and colleagues to continue after the course? So that might be people locally, that might be Storytime Underground, but finding ways to continue on your journey. So those are the 4 pillars that are incorporated in our Supercharged Storytime course. I hope that gives you a little more understanding. And Kathleen's going to get into a little more of the nuts and bolts.
Thank you, Brooke. So community of practice is a 4th pillar, and it's really essential to the work that we do, and really creating a learning community. So a place where people don't feel alone and isolated in what they're doing and what they're learning, and also when they have questions to ask. So as Brooke mentioned, this course just launched in October, and so it's just been a few months, and we already have had 1,600 enrollments. It's been really thrilling to see that activity and to know that this is something that folks want to be a part of. A big part of this is, and Brooke made reference to this, it is not a quick training. It is really intended to be something that you do, you take step by step, really scaffolding your learning. So we have a place for folks to get started, just to get connected with their community and to introduce themselves. Just seeing that forum alone, the getting started and introductions, is just so inspiring. If you're ever feeling blue as a storytime practitioner, I encourage you to come to this forum, because it's just so inspiring to see what people are doing, the impact that they know that they're having, and also the learning that's already started just in the introductions. We have a number of modules. Each one is really intended to take it as a starting point. There's some learning content. And then we also encourage folks to go and do these things. And that's really the core piece of this, is to really practice and to say, okay, that didn't go so well, or next time I'm going to try this, and to really reflect on that, and just the power of reflection and what a difference that makes in all of our practice. We mentioned a couple of tools. These are just 4 out of many products or handouts that we've created. And one of the key pieces is a learner guide. We know that because this is online and this is self-paced, we know that a lot of folks need kind of a guidepost or something to help kind of walk you through and make sure that you're on the same page. If you were sitting next to someone in class, you'd know. But when you're online and doing that at your desk by yourself, you might just give up and say, I don't know. So this learning guide is a way to help keep you on pace and a place for notes and just to make sure that you're following along. Again, our early literacy planning tool is an essential piece of this training with a lot of really core guidance and examples. And then this worksheet itself is really a helpful piece to really think through and be ready. I think we all feel better when we've practiced or kind of thought it out and sketched out some ideas. And then you're ready to then be in the unpredictable environment of a story time, because children are not predictable. That's what we love about them. But once you have kind of your core ideas pretty solid, you can kind of react to those things. Also, a really core piece and really bringing in that notion of an equity lens, really thinking about how is my library welcoming to everyone. So this is one of the tools that can help get that started, and it also helps start the conversation. To think through, how is my entrance? What are my materials saying to folks? What are the signs? What are the languages? Just a really great way to start the conversation. You can do this on your own. You can do this with your team, just as a starting point. And that's what I love about this course is it's a starting point. Even if you have 20 years of experience, it's a great refresher. It's a great restarter. We have a lot of short videos to really, focus on the core tools and the core concepts. We ask you then to practice those concepts, and then again to really come back. They're short. You can return to them, watch them over and over if you need. A big piece of our learning network or our community of practice is our forums, and this is really where it brings the self-paced to really that personal experience. You can have conversations. We know a lot of people may not be responding to these, but we know that a lot of people are reading from this content and learning a lot. We also know that self-paced learning can feel lonely, and so the facilitator guide was created. This just gives me like goosebumps when I think about the power of what this can do. Our facilitator guide was developed to offer a way to gather people in remote areas to all work on this together. One person kind of self-selecting to be a facilitator, and this guide will help individuals walk through to help people stay kind of inspired, wanting to continue working on this. It's a lot of content. It's a lot to learn. And this guide really will help folks encourage each other and to help ask good questions and just to make sure that we know that people can complete the course. I don't know if you've ever had an experience of registering for something online and you start it and you're inspired, but you find other things to do. So this has been a really great tool. As we wrap up today's session, we just wanted to share a couple of course feedback. People are really enjoying the experience, and we just welcome you to first to enroll in the course. It is free and available to anyone who is interested, affiliated, works in libraries, and we encourage all of you to share this with people that it may be relevant to, and we welcome any questions today. Thank you.